Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when we are tested, moments that reveal who we truly are. And when those moments come, when the storm rages and the world is trying to drag us into its chaos, there is one thing we often forget: the power of silence. We think we have to say something. We think we have to speak out to defend ourselves, to prove our worth, to stand our ground. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in a situation is nothing at all. Sometimes protecting yourself means staying silent. Now, I know what you're thinking. Silence. How does silence protect me? How does staying quiet help me in a world that's always demanding a response? How does silence defend me from the challenges and the people who want to break me down? Let me tell you something: the world can be a loud, overwhelming place. People will try to pull you into their drama, into their arguments, into their distractions. They will try to provoke you, get you to react, to say something, to engage. And here's the thing: when you react, when you open your mouth, you give away your power. You let someone else dictate the terms of the conversation, the direction of the conflict. You're no longer in control of the situation. You're simply playing the game by their rules. But if you learn to stay silent, if you learn to master the art of holding your tongue, you'll notice something remarkable. You start to control the game. You stop reacting. You stop letting the world push your buttons. You start to operate from a place of strength, from a place where your peace is more important than their noise. And here's the secret: when you don't respond, when you don't let the words fly out of your mouth in the heat of the moment, you keep your energy intact. You protect your peace. Think about it for a second. When you're involved in a conflict, when someone challenges you, what is the first thing you want to do? You want to defend yourself, right? You want to make sure the other person knows you're not weak. You want to make sure they know you're not afraid, that you won't stand for their disrespect. But here's the catch: that's not what's important. What's important? What's important is not how they see you in that moment. What's important is how you see yourself, how you manage your emotions, how you maintain control over your thoughts and actions. You see, silence isn't about weakness, it's about strength. It's about knowing when to speak and when to be quiet. It's about understanding that not everything deserves a reaction. And when you stay silent, you're making a choice. You're choosing not to let anyone else's negativity or aggression dictate your emotions. You're choosing to stay above the fray, to rise above the noise. You're choosing to protect yourself from getting dragged into a battle that isn't yours to fight. Because here's the truth: there will always be people who try to bring you down. There will always be critics, always be doubters, always be those who try to diminish your worth, question your decisions, and test your resolve. But if you constantly feel the need to explain yourself, to respond, to prove them wrong, you're giving them power over you. You're letting them control your narrative. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should never speak up. I'm not saying you should be passive or allow yourself to be walked all over. There are moments when silence is not an option, when you need to stand up for yourself, for your values, for the people you love. But let me ask you: when you do speak, are you doing it out of emotion or out of intention? Are you speaking because you've carefully considered your words, or are you reacting in the heat of the moment, driven by anger, pride, or insecurity? In the heat of the moment, it's easy to say things you don't mean. It's easy to let your emotions take over and say something you'll regret later. But if you can learn to pause, to breathe, and to stay silent, you create space for clarity. You create room for wisdom to enter. You stop yourself from saying things that could hurt you, hurt others, or damage your reputation. You start to see things for what they really are, not through the lens of immediate emotion. Let's talk about control. You can't control other people. You can't control what they say, how they behave, or how they treat you. But you can control how you respond. And silence, in many cases, is the ultimate form of control. When you refuse to engage in petty arguments, when you resist the urge to clap back at someone who's trying to provoke you, you demonstrate that you are the one in charge. You show that you can take the high road, that you're not going to stoop to their level. You show that your peace is more important than their drama. One of the most important things you can do to protect yourself in this life is to guard your energy. You only have so much to give. Your time, your focus, your emotions, they're precious. When you're constantly responding to every little comment, every jab, every criticism, you drain yourself. You exhaust your energy on things that don't deserve it. And that's when you become vulnerable, when you start to lose sight of your own purpose and direction. But when you stay silent, you protect that energy, you keep it for the things that matter. You focus on what's important to you, on the people who truly value you, and on the goals that you've set for yourself. You don't waste your time on things that don't move you forward. You don't let other people's noise steal your peace or distract you from your purpose. And don't mistake silence for passivity. There's a difference between being silent and being weak. Being silent doesn't mean you don't have a voice. It doesn't mean you've given up your right to speak out when it truly matters. What it means is that you understand the power of restraint. You understand that sometimes saying nothing is the most powerful thing you can do. Silence is a tool that can protect your mind, protect your heart, and protect your spirit from unnecessary conflict. And remember, your silence doesn't have to be loud. You don't have to announce that you're staying silent. You don't have to explain your reasons to anyone. The power of silence comes from its subtlety. It comes from the strength it takes to hold your tongue when everything inside of you is screaming to speak up. And here's the real power of that silence that speaks for itself. Your calmness, your quiet confidence, your ability to remain composed in the face of adversity, that speaks volumes. That tells others that you are not someone who can be easily shaken. That tells others that you're not someone who will be dragged into every petty argument or fight. You are above that. You are in control of your emotions, your actions, and your response. But let me be clear, this doesn't mean you should suppress your feelings. It doesn't mean you should bottle things up and let them fester. What it means is that you learn to pick your battles. You learn to understand when it's worth engaging and when it's better to remain silent. You learn to trust yourself, trust your instincts, and trust that sometimes saying nothing at all can be the most powerful response you can give. There's wisdom in silence. There's strength in restraint. And there's protection in knowing when to speak and when to be still. The more you learn to control your reactions, the more you learn to protect your own peace, the more you'll see that staying silent is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom, a sign of maturity, and a sign of strength. And over time, you'll realize that your silence has done more to protect you than any words ever could. So the next time life throws a challenge your way, the next time someone tries to provoke you, to pull you into their drama or their conflict, take a deep breath. Pause. Hold your tongue. Protect your peace. Stay silent. Because in that silence, you will find the strength to rise above it all. Silence is not a sign of weakness, but a tool for personal power. It helps you maintain control over your emotions, focus your energy on what matters, and protect your peace by not reacting impulsively to external noise or provocations. Responding in the heat of the moment often leads to regret. By staying silent, you create space for clarity and wisdom, allowing you to choose a more intentional response rather than reacting emotionally and potentially losing control of the situation. By resisting the urge to respond to every criticism or conflict, you protect your mental and emotional energy. This allows you to focus on your goals and the things that truly matter without being drained by unnecessary distractions. Silence doesn't mean you're giving up your right to speak, rather, it reflects wisdom and maturity. It demonstrates your ability to stay above petty arguments, maintain composure, and prioritize peace over drama or conflict. In the world we live in today, the pressure to react to every situation is overwhelming. We are taught from a young age to speak up, to defend ourselves, to make our voices heard, especially when we feel challenged or wronged. Yet there's an undeniable power in silence, a strength in holding your tongue and choosing not to engage in every conversation, argument, or confrontation that comes your way. It's a form of self-control, a decision to maintain your peace and not let the world dictate your emotions. But silence, contrary to what many believe, is not about passivity. It is not about letting others walk all over you or suppressing your feelings. It is about understanding that not everything requires a response, and sometimes silence is the strongest, most powerful thing you can offer. When you think of strength, what do you envision? physical power, the ability to fight back, the courage to confront someone face to face. These are the common associations with strength, but they are not the only forms of strength that exist. True strength lies in the ability to control your emotions, to not let external circumstances or people dictate how you feel, how you act, or how you respond. Silence is a reflection of that inner strength, the strength that comes from knowing that you don't need to engage in every battle, that not every comment, insult, or attack requires a reaction. One of the key elements of silence as strength is the ability to avoid unnecessary drama. We all know that there are situations in life that pull us into arguments or conflicts, often without any real resolution. These moments come from misunderstandings, frustrations, or simply from people who are looking to provoke a reaction. Some people thrive on creating chaos because it feeds their need for attention, validation, or control. When you respond to these situations, you give them exactly what they want, a reaction. You get pulled into their energy, and suddenly your peace, your focus, and your purpose are compromised. It is in the moments where we choose not to react, not to engage, that we demonstrate real power. The ability to stay silent doesn't mean you don't have a voice. It means you have learned that there is wisdom in restraint. You understand that not every situation needs to be fought with words. It's easy to feel the pressure to respond, to defend your position, to prove your worth or your intelligence. But the most powerful people often know when to remain still. In choosing silence, you decide that your inner peace is more important than winning an argument or trying to prove a point. You refuse to be dragged into drama because you know that not every disagreement needs to be settled with words. This kind of strength comes from a deep understanding of yourself. When you are secure in who you are, when you know your value, you don't need to constantly explain yourself or defend your actions. You are comfortable with silence because you understand that your worth is not contingent upon the validation of others. You understand that the approval of others is fleeting, and at the end of the day, your own peace is what matters most. Those who feel the need to engage in every argument or conflict are often the ones who feel insecure or uncertain about themselves. They need constant validation from others because they are not at peace with who they are. The power of silence, on the other hand, comes from an inner peace that cannot be shaken by the words or actions of others. Another significant aspect of the power of silence as strength is the impact it has on how others perceive you. People may expect you to react to their insults, challenges, or provocations. They may want to see you fight back, argue, or try to prove your point. But when you choose silence, you demonstrate that you are not easily swayed by external pressures. You show that you are calm, composed, and in control of your emotions. And this sends a powerful message to others: you cannot be manipulated. You are not driven by ego, pride, or insecurity. Instead, you are driven by something deeper: your sense of inner peace, your values, and your own sense of self-respect. In a world that is constantly moving, constantly demanding your attention, silence becomes a rare and valuable commodity. It is an act of rebellion against the noise, the chaos, and the distractions that surround us. It's a way of saying, I am not defined by what others think of me. I do not need to react to every provocation. Silence creates space for you to think, to reflect, and to make decisions from a place of clarity. When you remain silent in difficult situations, you free yourself from the emotional noise of conflict. You refuse to let your mind be clouded by anger, frustration, or fear. Instead, you maintain your calm, you stay centered, and you wait for the right moment to respond, if at all. Silence also allows you to observe. When you don't immediately respond to a situation, you can take a step back and truly understand what is happening around you. You can see things clearly without being clouded by your emotions. This perspective is valuable because it allows you to make decisions that are informed and thoughtful. Often, when we respond out of emotion, we end up saying or doing things we regret. But by choosing silence, you give yourself the opportunity to think before acting. You allow yourself the time and space to make a decision that aligns with your values, not just your immediate emotional response. Silence is also a tool for protection. In the face of criticism or negativity, it is easy to fall into the trap of defending yourself. We feel the need to prove others wrong, to correct their misunderstandings, to set the record straight. But by doing so, we often open ourselves up to even more criticism, more conflict, and more energy-draining arguments. Silence protects you from these unnecessary battles. It creates a barrier between you and the negative energy of others. When you don't engage, you protect your energy from being drained by people who are simply looking to provoke you. You choose to stay focused on your own path, your own growth, and your own well-being rather than getting caught up in someone else's drama. One of the most challenging aspects of silence is that it can sometimes feel uncomfortable. We are social creatures and our instinct is to respond, to communicate, to defend ourselves when we feel attacked. But there is a strength in sitting with that discomfort and not reacting. It is in those moments of silence that we truly grow. We learn to master our impulses, to understand our emotions, and to regain control over how we respond to external circumstances. Over time, this practice of silence becomes easier and it becomes more natural. You begin to realize that you don't need to respond to every challenge, that your value does not depend on your ability to defend yourself. Silence also allows you to build resilience. In the face of adversity, it's easy to let your emotions take over. Anger, frustration, fear, these emotions are natural reactions to difficult situations, but they can also cloud your judgment and impair your ability to think clearly. Silence allows you to sit with those emotions, to observe them without acting on them. It gives you the space to process your feelings, to understand where they are coming from, and to choose how you want to respond. This is resilience, the ability to stay calm and composed, even in the face of challenges. By choosing silence, you also gain a sense of personal sovereignty. You are not at the mercy of others' words or actions. You are not bound by the need to respond to every provocation or criticism. You are in control of your own emotions, your own reactions, and your own peace of mind. You decide when to speak and when to stay silent. This autonomy is empowering because it allows you to take ownership of your life, to direct your energy where it matters most, and to protect your mental and emotional well-being. Silence is not about weakness or submission. It is not about being passive or silent in the face of injustice. It is about recognizing that there is strength in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. It is about understanding that sometimes the greatest power lies in the ability to hold your tongue and maintain your peace, rather than reacting impulsively to every provocation. It is about protecting your energy, your emotions, and your sense of self. And when you choose silence, you do so not because you are afraid, but because you are strong enough to remain still, to observe, and to respond with wisdom when the time is right. One of the most difficult but crucial skills in life is learning how to control our reactions. From the moment we're born, we're taught how to respond to the world around us, to respond to our needs, to express our emotions, and to communicate with others. However, what we aren't always taught is the power of choosing how we react, especially in challenging situations. We often think of reactions as automatic, that they are simply the result of external stimuli. But the truth is, we have much more control over our reactions than we realize. And the ability to control those reactions is one of the most powerful tools we can possess in maintaining our peace, our focus, and our overall well-being. Every day we are confronted with situations that test our patience, our understanding, and our resilience. Some of these situations are minor, like being stuck in traffic or dealing with an annoying email. Others are more serious, like facing criticism, dealing with conflict, or encountering injustice. In each of these moments, we are presented with a choice. We can react impulsively, driven by emotion and instinct, or we can take a moment to pause, reflect, and respond with intention and clarity. The difference between these two approaches can determine the quality of our relationships, the direction of our personal growth, and the level of peace we experience in our lives. The first step in learning to control your reactions is understanding that not every situation demands an immediate response. We live in a world that is constantly pushing us to act, to respond, to react. Social media, work environments, and even personal relationships often create a sense of urgency, making us feel as though we must act quickly in every situation. When we feel attacked or confronted, the instinct is often to fight back, to defend ourselves, or to prove that we're right. However, reacting in this way usually leads to more conflict, more misunderstandings, and more emotional turmoil. We often end up saying things in the heat of the moment that we don't truly mean. Or we find ourselves getting caught up in arguments that could have been avoided if we had taken a step back and paused. One of the most powerful things we can do in these moments is to give ourselves space to breathe, to pause before we react. This doesn't mean ignoring our feelings or suppressing our emotions. It means acknowledging our feelings, recognizing them for what they are, and then choosing to respond in a way that aligns with our values and goals, rather than being driven by our immediate emotions. It means taking control of the situation instead of letting the situation control us. This space between stimulus and response is where our true power lies. The ability to pause and reflect is a skill that requires practice. It's easy to react when we're angry, frustrated, or hurt. These emotions are intense and they can cloud our judgment, leading us to say or do things that we regret later. However, when we learn to pause and create that gap between what happens to us and how we respond, we give ourselves the opportunity to process our emotions and act with intention. It's in this moment of pause that we have the power to choose how we want to respond thoughtfully, with clarity, and with integrity. One key aspect of controlling our reactions is managing our emotions. Emotions are natural, and they serve an important purpose. They alert us to danger, they help us connect with others, and they motivate us to take action. However, when we allow our emotions to dictate our behavior, we risk acting impulsively and doing things we wouldn't normally do. The goal isn't to suppress emotions, but to manage them effectively, to allow ourselves to feel them without letting them control us. Emotional intelligence plays a significant role in this process. People with high emotional intelligence are able to recognize and understand their emotions, and they can use that awareness to navigate difficult situations more effectively. They don't let their emotions take over and lead them to impulsive decisions. Instead, they acknowledge their feelings, process them, and then make decisions from a place of clarity and reason. Emotional intelligence allows us to separate our feelings from our actions, enabling us to respond in ways that are constructive rather than reactive. Managing emotions also involves understanding that our initial reactions aren't always the most accurate or the most helpful. When we feel angry or upset, our mind can become clouded, and our perspective becomes narrow. We may see things in black and white with no room for nuance or understanding. In these moments, it's important to remind ourselves that our emotions are not always the truth. Just because we feel a certain way doesn't mean the situation is as dire as it seems. By taking a moment to reflect, we allow ourselves to gain perspective and avoid reacting in a way that could escalate the situation unnecessarily. Another important aspect of controlling our reactions is recognizing that we cannot control other people. So often we react to things that others say or do, trying to change their behavior or force them to see things from our perspective. However, trying to control other people is a futile endeavor. We cannot make others think, feel, or act the way we want them to. The only thing we can control is our own response. And that is where our power lies. We can choose to let others' words or actions affect us, or we can choose to remain unaffected. We can decide whether we want to engage in conflict or let go and move on. In the end, our peace of mind comes from within, and no one else has the power to take that from us unless we allow it. The practice of controlling our reactions also involves being mindful of our triggers. We all have certain things that set us off: comments, situations, or people that tend to provoke a strong emotional response. These triggers can often lead us to react without thinking, but by becoming aware of them, we can begin to manage our responses more effectively. When we know what triggers us, we can take steps to avoid those triggers or prepare ourselves to deal with them in a healthier way. In addition to emotional self-regulation, controlling our reactions also means being mindful of how we communicate with others. In difficult conversations, it's easy to become defensive, to raise our voices, or to say things that are hurtful in an attempt to protect ourselves. However, this only leads to more conflict and disconnection. Instead, we can choose to communicate with respect, empathy, and understanding. By remaining calm and composed, we can engage in conversations that are constructive rather than destructive. Another critical element of controlling our reactions is knowing when it's best to remain silent. Sometimes, in the face of conflict or provocation, saying nothing is the wisest choice. When emotions are running high, it's easy to say things we don't mean, to lash out, or to defend ourselves unnecessarily. But silence can be a powerful tool for de-escalating a situation. By choosing not to react immediately, we give ourselves the space to process our thoughts and decide how best to respond. Silence also communicates strength and self-control. It shows that we are not easily provoked, that we are secure enough in ourselves to not engage in petty arguments or battles that don't serve us. Learning to control your reactions also means letting go of the need to be right. We all have an innate desire to be understood, to have our perspectives validated, but this need can sometimes drive us to react in ways that aren't helpful. The need to be right often leads to unnecessary arguments and conflict. But the truth is, we don't always have to prove that we're right. In many cases, it's more important to maintain our peace and preserve our relationships than it is to win an argument. When we let go of the need to be right, we free ourselves from the stress and frustration of trying to prove ourselves to others. We can choose to let things go and move on rather than getting caught in a cycle of defensiveness and conflict. Finally, the ability to control our reactions requires self-compassion. It's easy to be hard on ourselves when we make mistakes, when we react in ways that we later regret. But part of the process of learning to control our reactions is acknowledging that we are human and we will inevitably slip up from time to time. When we do, the key is not to beat ourselves up, but to learn from the experience and try again. Self-compassion allows us to approach ourselves with kindness, to accept our imperfections, and to understand that growth is a process. As we practice controlling our reactions, we will inevitably face challenges, but it is in those moments that we learn the most about ourselves and our capacity for growth. The ability to control our reactions is a skill that takes time, practice, and patience to develop. It is not something that happens overnight, but with consistent effort, we can begin to respond to life's challenges with greater awareness, clarity, and intention. And in doing so, we will create more peace, more harmony, and more success in our lives. Energy is one of the most valuable resources we have. It's the force that fuels our thoughts, our actions, our decisions, and our overall approach to life. In a world that's constantly demanding more of us through work, relationships, social obligations, and personal challenges, learning to guard your energy is not just a smart move, it's essential for maintaining your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. We often take our energy for granted, allowing it to be drained by external factors, toxic people, negative environments, and mindless distractions. But what if we could protect and conserve our energy the way we protect our most valuable assets? What if we became more mindful of where we invest our time and effort and how we manage the things that drain us? In many ways, guarding your energy is about creating boundaries, recognizing your limits, and being intentional about the people, situations, and activities you allow into your life. From the moment we wake up, our energy is being used. We expend it in our thoughts and our actions and our interactions. Every decision, every conversation, every task takes a portion of it. Some of these expenditures are natural and necessary. But what we often fail to recognize is how much of our energy is being unknowingly siphoned off by things that don't serve us, things that either detract from our well-being or simply don't add value to our lives. The more we learn to recognize these energy drains, the better we can guard and preserve our energy for the things that truly matter. One of the first steps in guarding your energy is learning how to recognize what drains you. It's not always obvious at first because many of the things that drain us come in the form of subtle, cumulative stressors rather than one big event. They might look like small negative interactions with people, unnecessary drama, or the unrelenting pull of obligations that aren't aligned with your values. These things might seem insane. The moment, but over time, they add up and leave you feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and unmotivated. One major energy drain comes from people who constantly demand your attention or validation. These are the people who have a tendency to monopolize your time, require excessive emotional labor, or consistently create drama. They might be friends, family members, co-workers, or even strangers, but they all share one thing in common: they take more from you than they give. At first, you might feel like you're just being a good friend, a supportive family member, or a team player. But over time, you begin to notice that these relationships aren't truly reciprocal. They ask for your time, your attention, and your energy, but they don't offer much in return. They might drain your emotional reserves with constant complaining, criticism, or negativity. Or they might require you to constantly explain yourself, prove your worth, or offer validation, leaving you feeling depleted. One of the most difficult things about these types of relationships is that they often feel like obligations. You don't want to let people do. So you give and give, even when you don't have anything left to give. But in the process, you sacrifice your own well-being. This is why it's so important to learn how to set boundaries with people who drain your energy. Boundaries are essential for protecting your time, your emotions, and your mental health. Setting clear boundaries doesn't mean you have to be rude or cut people out of your life entirely. It means you learn to say no when you need to, and you create space for yourself to recharge. It means recognizing that you can't be everything to everyone, and that it's okay to prioritize your own needs. Guarding your energy also means being mindful of the environments you expose yourself to. Environments, whether physical, emotional, or mental, can have a huge impact on our energy. Think about the spaces where you spend most of your time. Are they uplifting, inspiring, and calming, or are they chaotic, cluttered, and draining? The energy of the spaces around us can affect how we feel, think, and function. A cluttered workspace, for example, can lead to feelings of stress and overwhelm. A toxic work environment can sap your motivation and creativity. And a home filled with negative energy or unresolved conflicts can prevent you from finding peace and relaxation. Recognizing the energy of your surroundings and taking steps to improve them is a key aspect of guarding your energy. Sometimes this means organizing your physical space to create a calm, peaceful environment. Other times it means distancing yourself from toxic or negative environments that leave you feeling drained. This could involve changing the way you engage with social media, stepping back from situations that create unnecessary stress, or creating more time for yourself to recharge in peaceful, restorative environments. In addition to people and environments, guarding your energy also involves being mindful of the thoughts and emotions you allow yourself to engage with. Your mind is a powerful thing. Your singularity, your mind is a powerful thing. Your thoughts shape your reality, and your emotional state influences how you perceive the world around you. When you allow negative thoughts like self-doubt, fear, or worry to dominate your mind, you expend energy on things that are unproductive, unhealthy, and ultimately draining. The more you ruminate on negative or unhelpful thoughts, the more your energy is consumed by them. This is why it's so important to take control of your inner dialogue and to learn how to shift your mindset. A huge part of guarding your energy is learning to cultivate a mindset that is positive, focused, and aligned with your goals. This doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. It simply means recognizing that you have the power to choose your perspective. You can choose to focus on solutions rather than P. You can choose to see opportunities rather than obstacles. You can choose to shift your mindset from a place of scarcity to one of abundance. One of the best ways to manage your mental and emotional energy is through mindfulness and meditation. These practices help you to stay present, to observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them, and to create a space of stillness where you can reconnect with yourself. Mindfulness helps you become more aware of where your energy is going and helps you to redirect it back to the things that truly matter. Meditation, on the other hand, is a powerful tool for resetting your mind and replenishing your energy. Even just a few minutes of deep breathing or guided meditation can make a significant difference in how you feel, helping you to ground yourself and reconnect with your inner peace. Another aspect of guarding your energy is understanding your limits. We often push ourselves too hard, thinking that the more we do, the more we'll achieve. But this mindset can lead to burnout. When you constantly overextend yourself, you spread your energy thin, and it becomes difficult to focus on the things that truly matter. We have to acknowledge that we're human and we have fine energy. This is why it's so important to recognize when to take a step back and rest. Rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. When we allow ourselves to rest and recharge, we replenish our energy and restore our capacity to take on the challenges of the day. This could be as simple as taking a walk, reading a book, spending time with loved ones, or taking a nap. Rest and relaxation are essential for guarding your energy and ensuring that you have the strength to face life's challenges with resilience. Sometimes guarding your energy also means learning to let go of things that no longer serve you. This could be old habits, outdated beliefs, or even physical possessions that weigh you down. Holding on to things that no longer serve your growth can drain your energy and prevent you from moving forward. When you let go of the things that no longer serve you, whether they're relationships, material possessions, or negative thought patterns, you free up space for new energy to flow into your life. You create room for growth, for new opportunities, and for the things that will truly bring you joy and fulfillment. In addition to releasing the things that drain you, it's equally important to actively cultivate the things that recharge you. This means intentionally seeking out experiences, people, and activities that fill you up rather than deplete you. Whether it's spending time in nature, pursuing a passion, connecting with supportive friends, or engaging in creative work, make sure that you regularly make space for the things that bring you joy and fulfillment. These are the things that renew your energy and help you maintain a positive outlook on life. It's easy to get caught up in the demands of everyday life, but guarding your energy requires you to make your well-being a priority. You must intentionally create space for the things that nourish you and bring you peace. Ultimately, guarding your energy is about recognizing your value and protecting your time and focus. When you are mindful of where your energy goes, you take back control of your life. You create boundaries that preserve your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. and you learn to focus your efforts on the things that truly matter. By protecting your energy, you are ensuring that you have the strength and the capacity to create the life you want, to build meaningful relationships, and to achieve your goals without burning out or losing yourself along the way. It is an act of self-respect and self-care, a commitment to living a life that is aligned with your values and your purpose. In a world that constantly pulls us in multiple directions, guarding your energy is not just a choice, it's a necessity. In a world that constantly demands our attention and invites us to speak up, the act of remaining silent can be perceived as weakness or passivity. But in truth, silence can be one of the most powerful forms of self-respect and wisdom. It's a quiet strength that many fail to recognize, yet it holds immense potential for personal growth, emotional intelligence, and self-mastery. The idea that silence equals weakness is a misconception, one that often leads people to over-explain themselves, seek validation from others, or engage in unnecessary conflict. True wisdom, however, often lies in knowing when to speak and, perhaps more importantly, when to remain silent. Silence isn't merely the absence of sound, it's the presence of inner control, self-awareness, and the capacity to observe without judgment. It's a declaration of inner peace and self-confidence, a recognition that not every situation requires a reaction. One of the most significant aspects of silence as self-respect is that it requires a deep understanding of one's own value. When you respect yourself, you don't feel the need to constantly explain, defend, or justify your thoughts and actions. You know who you are, and you understand that your worth isn't contingent upon the opinions or approval of others. Silence in the face of judgment or misunderstanding is not a sign of insecurity, it's a testament to your belief in yourself. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone because you're already secure in your own sense of identity. Self-respect in this context means knowing that you don't owe anyone an explanation unless it aligns with your values or serves a constructive purpose. In relationships, silence can be a form of emotional protection. When we are constantly engaged in verbal battles, whether it's with a partner, friend, coworker, or even a stranger, we often end up draining ourselves emotionally. Constantly defending our positions, arguing our points, or reacting to every comment or behavior from others can be exhausting and can lead to emotional burnout. Silence allows us to protect our energy and maintain our emotional boundaries. It prevents us from getting caught up in unnecessary drama, arguments, or toxic exchanges that serve no purpose other than to destabilize our peace. When someone criticizes you, judges you, or tries to provoke you, silence can be the most respectful way to respond. You're not conceding, nor are you allowing the other person to control the narrative. Instead, you're taking control of your emotional response, choosing not to engage in negativity or conflict. This kind of self-discipline is a reflection of your inner strength and your ability to rise. Circumstances that are beneath your dignity. Silence as self-respect also extends to the way we interact with our own thoughts and emotions. We live in a world of constant noise, both external and internal. The voices in our heads, the demands of daily life, and the pressure to be constantly busy or productive often drown out our inner wisdom and the clarity we seek. When we are overwhelmed with noise, it becomes harder to connect with our true selves. Silence, on the other hand, provides the space we need to reflect, to process our emotions, and to make thoughtful decisions. When you embrace silence, you're acknowledging the need for rest, for mental and emotional clarity. You're respecting your own process of self-discovery and growth, rather than rushing into situations or decisions without the benefit of introspection. In moments of silence, we connect with the deepest parts of ourselves, the parts that are not swayed by outside influences or the distractions of the world. The wisdom of silence lies in the understanding that not every question needs an answer, and not every opinion needs to be voiced. Silence can be a form of active listening, where you absorb information without immediately reacting. It's in these moments of pause that you truly learn. We live in an age where everyone has something to say, and the louder we speak, the more attention we receive. But true wisdom isn't about dominating a conversation or ensuring your voice is heard above all others. It's about recognizing that listening is just as important, if not more so, than speaking. When you listen in silence, you open yourself up to understanding, to empathy, and to the wisdom of others. This kind of listening requires humility, an acknowledgement that you don't have all the answers and that the perspectives of others are just as valuable as your own. By embracing silence as a form of active listening, you foster deeper connections with others, allowing them to feel heard and understood. Another form of wisdom in silence comes from the ability to resist the temptation to react impulsively. In moments of stress, frustration, or anger, it's natural to want to respond immediately, to assert ourselves, or to defend our point of view. But often, those quick reactions are driven by emotions rather than rational thought. When we respond impulsively, we risk saying things we don't mean, causing harm to relationships or escalating conflicts unnecessarily. Silence in these moments acts as a buffer, a space to pause, reflect, and choose a more thoughtful response. It's the ability to step back and acknowledge that your first impulse might not always be the best course of action. Silence offers the opportunity to gather your thoughts, evaluate the situation, and respond with greater insight, patience, and wisdom. Choosing silence also requires a deep understanding of the value of time and energy. In today's world, we are often encouraged to be constantly busy, constantly productive, and constantly speaking. But the reality is, much of our time and energy can be wasted on things that don't add value to our lives. Whether it's engaging in trivial conversations, arguing over meaningless points, or simply filling our days with noise, we often allow ourselves to be consumed by things that ultimately don't matter. Silence, in this sense, is a way of reclaiming your time. It's a deliberate choice to prioritize your energy and focus on the things that truly matter. By saying less, we conserve our mental and emotional resources, allowing us to direct them towards what aligns with our goals, values, and purpose. Silence becomes a tool for deepening our connection with our own aspirations and values rather than getting lost in the distractions of the world. Another important aspect of silence is its role in protecting our peace. We live in a world that is often chaotic, divisive, and filled with conflict. Whether it's the news cycle, social media, or interpersonal disputes, there is no shortage of external noise that can disturb our inner peace. In the midst of this chaos, silence becomes a sanctuary, a safe space where we can retreat and recharge. When we choose silence, we are choosing peace over conflict, clarity over confusion, and focus over distraction. Silence allows us to tune out the noise and return to a state of calm, where we can reconnect with our inner sense of balance and harmony. This doesn't mean that we avoid conflict altogether, but it does mean that we learn to protect our peace by not engaging in every battle or getting caught up in every dispute. In moments of tension, silence is often the most powerful and peaceful response. Silence also requires humility. It takes a certain level of maturity to realize that you don't need to speak to be heard, and that sometimes your presence alone is enough. In a world where we are constantly encouraged to assert ourselves, it can be difficult to recognize the power in letting go of the need for validation. But true self-respect is not dependent on the approval of others. It's about being secure in yourself, knowing that your worth is inherent, and that you don't need to constantly prove it. Silence can be a humble acknowledgement that you don't need to take up space with your words to be valuable. By choosing silence, you signal to yourself and others that you are comfortable with who you are and that you don't need external validation to feel worthy. In situations of conflict or misunderstanding, silence can also serve as a form of protection for your emotional health. Not every disagreement requires a response. Sometimes people engage in arguments simply to provoke a reaction or to validate their own emotions. By remaining silent, you refuse to engage in their emotional drama. You preserve your emotional well-being by not getting pulled into negative interactions that drain you. Silence in these moments is a shield that protects your peace, allowing you to stay grounded and unaffected by external chaos. Silence is also a way of practicing patience. In many situations, we feel the need to jump in and speak our minds immediately, particularly when we feel misunderstood or attacked. But silence teaches us to be patient, to wait for the right moment, to allow things to unfold naturally, and to trust that we don't always need to control the outcome. This patience in silence allows for greater perspective and insight. When we refrain from rushing to respond, we give ourselves the opportunity to reflect, to gather our thoughts, and to ensure that our response is measured, thoughtful, and aligned with our values. Patience through silence is an exercise in trusting ourselves, trusting the process, and trusting that things will unfold in their own time. True wisdom is often quiet. It's in the stillness where insight arises, where clarity is found, and where we can reconnect with our higher selves. Silence is a tool for self-discovery, emotional mastery, and personal growth. It's the space where we learn to listen to others, to ourselves, and to the world around us. It's the space where we cultivate humility, patience, and discernment. And when we learn to embrace silence, we honor ourselves, our experiences, and our journey. We recognize that not every moment requires our input, and that sometimes the wisest thing we can do is to remain still, listen carefully, and allow life to unfold as it will.